morning, dear students. I am Miss NAVEDA SHAIKH from Brahan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika MCGM virtual class. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. In today's session, we'll be learning something new and interesting from a science textbook. So let's get started.
Good morning, dear students. I am Mrs. Naveda Sheikh from MCGM Virtual Class. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. Today, we are going to learn a very interesting chapter from your Science 1 textbook, and that is Space Mission. Now, this chapter is very interesting because we will come to know how the space shuttles that we always have heard about, how they are let into the space, and what are the different parts that are there, and how do they go up so high. Okay, and how are we making use of those satellites in our day-to-day work. Okay, so it's a very interesting chapter and we'll be learning few more interesting things in this chapter. So let's get started and learn something new and interesting. In this chapter, we'll be learning about space missions. Now, always remember, whenever a satellite is let into the space, it has a particular mission, why it is sent, as to why it is sent into the space. ऐसे ही सिर्फ satellites को भेजा नहीं जाता है. So we'll be learning that. We'll be learning about artificial satellites. You have learned in your 5th, 6th, 8th standard about what is the meaning of natural satellites and what are artificial satellites. We'll be learning in detail about the artificial satellites in this chapter. We will be learning about classification of artificial satellites. Now, artificial satellites are of various types, so we'll be learning how they are classified. We'll be learning about the orbits of artificial satellites. Means orbits आप लोगों को पता है in 8th standard learned about how the electrons are moving in a particular orbit. एक shell, एक line होती है जिसके आसपास वो चीज revolve होती है. तो artificial satellites किस तरीके से orbits में होते हैं, that we'll be learning. And we will be learning about satellite launch vehicles as well. कि जो सैटेलाइट जो लेकर जो व्हीकल चले जैसे कि रॉकेट्स आप लोग देखते हो, ये जो सैटेलाइट लॉन्च व्हीकल्स होती है वो कौन से टाइप्स की होती है, उसमें क्या क्या पार्ट्स होते हैं, we'll be learning that as well. And the last thing that we'll be learning is space missions away from the earth. Now there are various missions which are for and around the earth, and there are several space missions which are onto the other planets, like have space missions on Mars, even on Moon. So there are different missions that they have. So we'll be learning about that as well. So before we start with, now what are the different objects in the solar system that we have seen? In your previous standards, you have learned about the solar system, and in the solar system, we have learned that there are various planets. Along with the planets, there are meteors, there are asteroids, there are rocks, pieces of rocks are there. You have sun, moon, various satellites, natural satellites that are available around the other planets. So all these things are we have already learned about, and they are present in the solar system, right? How many natural satellites does the Earth have? Now we have learned about the natural satellite, that is the moon. Now Earth has only one natural satellite, that is the moon. Alright, so do remember that. Now, space mission. There are more than 1,000 artificial satellites which have been placed into the orbit around the Earth. As I told you that you are able to connect to each other through mobile phones. Right now you all are watching me on YouTube, and that is because of the satellite connectivity. ठीक है, ये सैटेलाइट कहाँ से आया है? ये आर्टिफिशियल सैटेलाइट है, स्पेस में डाला गया है. Okay, so this is a very important aspect why space missions are very important, क्योंकि ये हम लोगों को एक दूसरे से connected रखता है. Apart from that, there are additional space missions which have been undertaken for close observation of various objects in our solar system. So in the previous slide, as I told you that there are various things in our solar systems, like you have different planets. ठीक है, जैसे कि अभी हमारे closest planet we have already seen that there are satellites which have landed on the planet Mars and on Moon also. तो ये जो सारी चीजें हैं सोलर सिस्टम में, उनके ऊपर ऑब्जर्वेशन करने के लिए भी सैटेलाइट्स को लॉन्च किया जाता है और स्पेस में डाला जाता है. ठीक है. Now we can classify the space missions into categories. First category is in one type of mission, the objective is to put artificial satellites in orbits around the Earth for research and various other useful application. ठीक है कि हम लोग artificial satellite है उसे orbit में डाल देंगे और as you can see behind the satellite is moving in a pillar orbit around the Earth for research and various other useful applications. ठीक है कुछ रिसर्च करना है कि नॉर्थ पोल के बारे में या फिर और भी कोई चीज़ है अगर हम लोग को जाननी है रिसर्च करना है तो उसके लिए यूजफुल होते हैं ये द ऑब्जेक्टिव इज to send the spacecraft to outer space for close observation and understanding of the objects in solar system or even outside the solar system. Now there are certain satellites which have been sent on the moon to see कि ये जो moon है क्या वहाँ पर life exist कर सकती है वहाँ का temperature क्या है वहाँ पे पानी present है वहाँ का land कौन से soils present है कौन से minerals present है okay so that type of investigations or observations are done with the help of these satellites ठीक है एक सैटेलाइट्स होती है जो अर्थ के सरफेस के पास ही होती है जो हमारे टेलीकम्युनिकेशन के लिए या फिर रिसर्च पर्पसेस के लिए यूज की जाती है एंड देर आर अदर satellites or spacecrafts which have been sent into the outer space ताकि वो हमारे planets पे है या फिर सोलर सिस्टम के अंदर और भी सारी चीजें हैं उसके ऊपर वो क्लोजर स्टडी कर सके ठीक है so these are a few pictures of the satellites which are moving around the earth and which are going in the outer space as well. Now the first person to go into the space in a spacecraft was Yuri Gagarin of the USSR. He orbited the Earth in 1961. The first person to step on the moon was Neil Armstrong of USA. Rakesh Sharma of India orbited the Earth in 1984 in a Russian spacecraft. And Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams of Indian origin also participated in space exploration through missions organized by NASA, that is National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the USA. Okay? So here you can see the pictures of Neil Armstrong and Kalpana Chawla and the person standing on the surface of the moon. Okay, so these are a few very famous personalities that you have already heard about. About Neil Armstrong तो हम लोगों ने बहुत बार सुना है कि he was the first person to land. मतलब spacecraft से बाहर निकल के एक बाहर की चीज पे चलना from the earth. So he was very known, and today also you know him very well about Neil Armstrong, the name. Apart from that, the first person to go into the spacecraft was Yuri Gagarin. Now, he did not go outside the spacecraft, but he was in the spacecraft and he had that much guts to go into the space alone and he orbited the earth. मतलब orbited मतलब एक earth का पूरा एक round लेकर in the spacecraft he had come in 1961. Okay, so these are a few famous personalities that you need to know about. Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams are of Indian origin, but they also took part in space exploration by which was organized by NASA. Okay, in USA. Now, why is there need and importance of space mission? As I told you that space crafts and satellites are very important because in today's scenario we need internet, we need there are different gadgets that we make use of and these are all related to the satellites that are there into the space orbiting around the earth. Okay, so you need to know how important these space missions are. So let us understand why it is needed and what are the important factors of space missions. During war, it is possible to get information about the actions of the enemy through aerial surveillance using satellite. Okay, if you have seen certain movies like Uri, the surgical strike, you must have seen that they make use of a bird, which was it was making use of the satellite connection. Okay, so it was not an actual bird, but it was made to connect with the satellite and they could see what is happening around in a far away place. ठीक है, तो उस वजह से हम लोग एक नज़र रख सकते हैं हमारे एनिमीज के ऊपर. इट इज ऑल्सो पॉसिबल टू एक्सप्लोर द फॉसिल रिजर्व्स एंड मिनरल्स इन द अर्थ. जमीन के अंदर जहाँ इंसान नहीं जा सकते वहां पर इसकी मदद से हम लोग मालूम कर सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर फॉसिल्स प्रेजेंट है या मिनरल्स प्रेजेंट है. देयर आर अनलिमिटेड एप्लीकेशंस ऑफ स्पेस मिशंस. Today, space technology is an inevitable part for development of a nation. So, if your nation wants to develop, you need to have a very good space technology. Okay. So, due to internet, every information is available at our fingertips. Yes or no? अभी हम लोगों को कोई चीज़ की information चाहिए, हम लोग directly phone चालू करके Google करते हैं, हम लोगों को पता चल जाता है उसके बारे में. So that is possible because of the space missions which are taking every now and then. It has become possible to get advance alert about natural disasters and calamities and take proper precautions. कोई भी calamity आने से पहले हमारे different gadgets are present by the uh, they are there and the government people come to know about those calamities. क्या ऐसा हो सकता है? वेदर फोरकास्ट होता है, पता है आप लोगों को, टेलीविजन पे न्यूज चैनल में बताते हैं कि अब बारिश होने वाली है या फिर 24 घंटे में बहुत बारिश होगी. So now why are they saying this? How are they coming to know? Because up in the satellite they captures the images and they send it to the people who are working there in the office, and they come to know okay yes, this condition can cause heavy rainfall in a particular area, or there is a storm which is going to come, and by that what can we do is minimize the damage that happen. ठीक है, तो इससे हम लोग प्रिकॉशन ले सकते हैं. अगर कोई नेचुरल कैलामिटी आने वाली है तो उसके बारे में भी हम लोगों को पहले से पता हो सकता है. Now, earlier we have learned about the natural satellites, right? We know that Moon is the natural satellite of the Earth. Now, apart from that, we also have artificial satellites. A natural satellite is an astronomical object orbiting the Earth or any other planet. We have known this, right? The Moon is the only natural satellite of the Earth. Some other planets in the solar system have more than one natural satellite. Similarly, if a man-made object revolves around the Earth or any other planet in a fixed orbit, it is called a artificial satellite. So, हमारा मून जो है वो नेचुरली एक सैटेलाइट प्रेजेंट है जो एक पर्टिकुलर ऑर्बिट में घूमता ही रहता है हमारे अर्थ के आसपास. बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, अगर कोई मेड आइटम को हम लोग अर्थ के बाहर या फिर किसी और प्लैनेट पे भेज रहे हैं और वो वहां पर रोटेट हो रहा है बराबर तरीके से in a fixed orbit, then those objects are called as satellites. Okay, those are artificial satellites which are sent, which are man-made and which revolve around the earth or any other planet in a fixed orbit. ठीक है, किसी भी तरीके से मूव नहीं होते, ऑर्बिट में उन्हें सेंड किया जाता है ताकि वही ऑर्बिट में वो घूमता रहे और हम लोग को उसकी डेटा मिलती रहे. Now the first artificial satellites was Sputnik. Now this is how it looks. Okay, the first artificial satellite is Sputnik, which was sent to space by Soviet Union in 1957. Today, more than 1,000 satellites are orbiting the Earth. Satellites work on solar energy. ठीक है, आप लोग सोच रहे होंगे कि फ्यूल कैसे मिलता है उन लोगों को. तो we all know that there is sun, and the sun can provide unlimited amount of solar energy to the satellites which are sent up, and that energy can be used by the satellite to work and function properly even if they are up in the space. ठीक है, so solar photovoltaic panels are attached to both sides of the satellites like wings. Instruments are installed in the satellites to receive and transmit signals from and to the earth. ठीक है, तो ये आप लोगों को जो साइड में विंग्स जैसे दिखाई दे रहे हैं, पैनल्स पे फोटोवोल्टिक पैनल्स लगाए जाते हैं ताकि वो मूव हो सके और उसके ऊपर जो सोलर एनर्जी है वो अब्सॉर्ब कर सके. देन जो ओरिजिनल ऑब्जेक्ट है, इंस्ट्रूमेंट होता है जो सैटेलाइट हम लोगों को मैसेज रिसीव करने में या सेंड करने में मदद करेगा, वो सारी चीजें उसके अंदर होती है. ठीक है, so this is how the first satellite Sputnik looks like. All right, and this is the interior view of it. The satellites have various other types of instruments also in them, depending on their function. कि वो क्यों जा रहे हैं ऊपर? अगर pictures लेने जा रहे हैं तो they'll be having a very nice quality cameras, lenses in them fixed. अगर वो कुछ चीज को soil का sample लेने जा रहे हैं तो दे वहां पर उस तरीके के instrument present होंगे उसके अंदर. ठीक है, अगर signals transmit करने वाली होगी वो satellite तो उसके अंदर signals के लिए अलग से एक जगह बनाई जाती है और इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स डाले जाते हैं. So signals are transmitted from the earth to the satellite and from the satellite to a mobile tower. Like in this picture you can see these satellites are sent into the space to perform various functions. Depending on their function, satellites are classified into following categories. Now, there are these names that you need to know. Indian National Satellite, the short form, the abbreviation is INSAT. GAST, that is Geosynchronous Satellite. Now, these are all names of satellites, okay? Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. Then you have Indian Remote Sensing Satellite. Then you have Synchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle. You have Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. Now these are all launch vehicles. Satellite launch की जाती है. PSLV, GSLV. Okay, these are launch vehicles which are also having some or the other kind of instruments fixed on them. Okay, so these are the satellites that you need to know. Orbits of artificial satellites. Now you must remember what we learned about what is the meaning of an orbit. जब हम लोग ने इलेक्ट्रॉन्स के बारे में पढ़े थे तो वी हैव लर्न दैट एटम के अंदर इलेक्ट्रॉन होते हैं जो एक पर्टिकुलर ऑर्बिट में मूव होते हैं. Now the same thing applies here as well. There are various orbits on around the earth surface. ठीक, वो ऑर्बिट अंदर अगर सैटेलाइट को छोड़ा जाता है तो बराबर से सैटेलाइट वो ऑर्बिट के आसपास घूमती है. So here you can see this picture also. In the dotted line is showing you the orbit and the satellite is moving around it. So all artificial satellites do not revolve in similar object or similar orbit around the. Now, as I told you that there are many thousands of satellites which are sent into the space for various purposes. ठीक है, कुछ वेदर फोरकास्ट के लिए सेंड किए जाते हैं, कुछ हम लोगों की टेली कम्युनिकेशन के लिए सेंड किया जाता है, कुछ बाहर के सोलर प्लैनेट्स के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन लेने के लिए, कुछ मीटियोर्स के ऊपर नजर रखने के लिए. सो देयर आर वेरियस सैटेलाइट्स व्हिच आर सेंट इनटू दिस ऑर्बिट्स. तो अभी जरूरी नहीं है कि सारे सैटेलाइट्स एक ही ऑर्बिट में घूमें. So there are various orbits in which the artificial satellites are led into. ठीक है, तो कुछ सैटेलाइट्स एक पर्टिकुलर ऑर्बिट में, कुछ दूसरे ऑर्बिट में, कुछ दूसरे ऑर्बिट में. It's like that. Okay, so the function of the satellite decides the height of the satellite's orbit from the earth surface. Suppose अगर अर्थ के कोई करीबी कुछ चीज का काम है तो वो एक नजदीकी ऑर्बिट में सेंड किया जाता है. सो द ऑर्बिट will be very closer to the earth surface. Suppose उसे बाहर किसी दूर से कुछ चीज के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन लेना है तो वो सैटेलाइट को थोड़े दूर के ऑर्बिट में रखा जाएगा. ठीक है, सो डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द फंक्शन कि वो सैटेलाइट क्यों जा रहा है उस हिसाब से उसका ऑर्बिट भी डिसाइड किया जाता है. ऑलराइट, so the nature of the orbit and whether the orbit shall be parallel to the equator or making some angle with it. Now here in this on the earth you can see that there is a standing line going through the earth surface that is showing you the equator. Okay, now to put the satellite in its proper orbit at specific height above the earth surface, the satellites are taken to that height using a satellite launcher. Now on the right hand side you can see this is a satellite launcher which is carrying the satellite. अब ये सैटेलाइट खुद से नहीं जा सकता अर्थ से स्पेस में, तो उसे लॉन्च करने के लिए एक सैटेलाइट लॉन्चर की जरूरत होती है. Now these satellite launchers have fuel in them and they take the satellite into that particular orbit. वो एक ऑर्बिट में जिस ऑर्बिट में उसे छोड़ना है वहां पर उसे छोड़ देते हैं. Then the satellite is given a specific velocity known as the critical velocity in a tangential direction to the orbit. The satellite then starts revolving around the earth. ठीक है, तो जब उसे वो छोड़ देते हैं the tip part that you see that is nothing but the satellite को वहां छोड़ दिया जाता है वो particular orbit में and then the satellites keep moving revolving around the Earth in that particular orbit. Now, these are a few examples of the artificial satellites and the different orbits that are there. Okay, you can see so many orbits, you can see so many satellites. Okay, so you can imagine कि अगर ये सारे एक ही में होते तो कितना डिस्टर्बेंस होता, कितने कोलिजन हो जाते, ठीक है, टकरा जाते, एक दूसरे से नुकसान करते और टूट भी सकते थे. So here in this picture, it is very clearly shown that there are different orbits and there are so many satellites which are revolving on these orbits. So let's have a look at the orbits. High Earth orbits. As the term suggests, high Earth orbit means Earth बीच में है और ये जो orbit है ये बहुत दूर है Earth से. If the height of the satellite's orbit above the Earth's surface is greater than or equal to 35,780 kilometers, the orbit is called high Earth orbit. These satellites are called geosynchronous satellites. These satellites are stationary, means they do not move. With reference to the Earth, they can observe a specific portion of the Earth continuously. Okay? They are used in applications like meteorology and for carrying signals for telephone, television, radio, etc. So this satellite that you see is the high Earth orbit. ये जो orbit दिखाई दे रहा है जिसमें ये satellite placed है, that is the high Earth orbit. Okay? इसकी height याद रखनी है आप लोगों को कि हमारे Earth के surface से कितने ऊंचे पे ये orbit present है. It is present at 35,780 kilometers. Medium Earth orbit. Now, medium Earth orbit, if the height of the satellite orbit above the Earth's surface is between 22,000 kilometers and 35,780 kilometers, the orbit is said to be medium Earth orbit. Okay, तो ये थोड़ा और करीब होते हैं as compared to the high Earth orbit. Now, the geostationary satellite orbit above the equator. These are therefore not useful in the study of polar region. ठीक है, because they are not moving, तो हम लोगों को polar region के आसपास की study करने के लिए they are not useful. For this purpose, elliptical medium Earth orbit passing over the polar region is used. Okay, so as I told you, in high Earth orbit they are not moving, so they are not useful for the polar study of the polar regions. So medium Earth orbits are useful because they are passing through over the polar region also. These orbits are called polar orbits as well. In these orbits, the satellite complete one revolution in 2 to 24 hours. Okay, so you can see how fast they move. Some of these satellites revolve in circular orbit at a height of about 20,200 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Global positioning satellites revolve in such orbit. Okay, so which satellites revolve? The global positioning satellites revolve in such orbits. Now we come on to the low Earth orbit. If the height of the satellite orbit above the Earth's surface is between 180 kilometers and 2000 kilometers, the orbit are called low Earth orbit. The satellites used for scientific experiments and atmospheric study evolve in the low Earth orbit. Okay, तो हमारा जो atmospheric study है या फिर किसी scientific experiment को करना है तो उसके लिए low Earth orbit का use किया जाता है. The satellites are sent in these low Earth orbits. Okay, depending on the height of the orbit, they complete one revolution in around 90 minutes. So it is very fast. International Space Station and Hubble telescope also revolve in low Earth orbit. So here in this picture you can clearly see, I'll show you all the orbits of different levels. This is our planet Earth, and around the Earth's surface you have the very first orbit that we are talking about, that is the low Earth orbit. Then you have the medium Earth orbit, okay, the one in the yellow color that you see, and the third you have the high Earth orbit. Alright, so this is how they keep moving around the Earth. These satellites move in these orbits. Okay, तो हम लोग ने बता चुके हैं कि कितने हाइट पे लो अर्थ ऑर्बिट होता है 180 किलोमीटर्स टू 2000 किलोमीटर्स तक के जो हाइट है वो लो ऑर्बिट है. उसके बाद जो मीडियम अर्थ ऑर्बिट है 2000 से 35,780 किलोमीटर्स के लिए है. और उसके बाद 35,700 के ऊपर जो है हमारा हाई अर्थ ऑर्बिट. Alright, this much is clear. So these are the orbits of the satellites.
If you like the session, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel so that you can share and view the videos that we had today for you. And please do not forget to hit the bell icon so that you remain updated with all the latest videos that we'll be making for our dear students. This session was quite useful to you. In the next coming period, we'll learn something new and interesting. Till then, thank you.